Chapter 1. Love, more than a hug. Because love is the tonic to cure all and cover all. Last summer, at our large family reunion, we lingered one evening at the dinner table. We'd spent the day swimming and boating, water tubing and water skiing on the lake, and now we'd just enjoyed a summer's feast. We were full of food and happy, and no one quite wanted to let go of that rare moment of everyone together and things being right. We kept nibbling at things, laughing, and telling stories. Lori, cute, curly-haired, and a very grown-up 6-year-old, decided she wanted to stay over at her grandmother's cottage. "Please," she begged her mom and then dad, who looked at each other, maybe a little surprised at first, but then not. They nodded to each other knowingly and smiled. I could almost read their thoughts. Lori is becoming more independent with each passing day. Our little girl is growing up. "Okay," Mom said to Lori, who, bursting with joy, hopped up and down. "You have the clothes you came in to wear tomorrow morning. They're practically clean. You only had them on a few minutes before changing into your swimsuit and then shorts. Oh, and you have your towel and brush and things from after swimming." She smiled at Grandma, who winked back. "You're set." "But, Mom, can't you take me to get my nightgown, my blanket, my pink pony?" "You've got everything you need," Dad said. "Besides, it's a good 10 minutes across the lake and 10 minutes back, but it's your bedtime now." They went back and forth on this till finally Lori's bottom lip began to quiver. "Oh, please! My toothbrush, my nightgown, my pink pony." "All right," her father said. "Go get your shoes and—" Even as he gave permission, Lori sprinted to the long flight of stairs that led to the pier where she'd left her sandals. Yeah, she said, scrambling down. "Hurry," he called down to her. "Get your brother's swimsuit and come on now. Hurry up." Lori stopped on one of the stairs. "Dad!" she yelled, turning back. "Dad, I'm going as fast as I can." "Lori!" I see and hear his frustration. That stern, bordering on angry tone every parent gets, feeling pushed by all the demands of getting their kids to bed on time, eating well, doing well, the million little things that feel so important in the day. Dad couldn't help but voice it either. "Don't talk in that tone of voice," he snapped. Lori picked her way down the rest of the stairs in tears. She was trying to do the right thing, and her dad still barked at her. Later, after everyone drifted to where they were staying for the night, Lori's grandmother and I lounged in the living room to unwind before bedtime. Lori sat between us on the floor, braiding the mane of her pink pony, confiding as much in him, it seemed, as us. "I don't know why such a happy day had to end with Dad being so angry," she said. "I was hurrying. I was trying to get my sandals. I wanted to be responsible like Dad and Mom always tell me." She looked up at us. "Why Mom would want me to stay over without my toothbrush, I will never understand." I could hear Lori parroting her mom now, a dental hygienist. "She always says, 'Go brush your teeth.' And I already have my 6-year molars and 4 permanent teeth. See?" Lori grinned like a Cheshire cat at the pony that she planted squarely in front of her. She looked him in the eye as her smile faded. "If I don't brush my teeth, they will rot in my mouth. Besides, I was just doing everything they asked." Her voice trembled, signaling tears just beneath the surface. "I was trying to do everything right." What you want them to remember. Trying to do everything right. It's what we're about as purposeful parents, and most of the time what our kids are about too. But all the niggling frustrations of the day get in the way. You want to give your children wisdom and know-how, discipline, character, responsibility, purpose, and perseverance. But in trying to impart these things, there are episodes, tears, meltdowns. Like Lori, wanting her pink pony and blanket, your kids may get stuck on some one thing, and then you get stuck on something else, and you clash. Is that what we want them to remember? The snapping and barking to straighten up and fly right, to get their teeth brushed and to get them to bed on time? Or is it the love you have for them? the love they carry into everything they are and do? It's so important for your kids to have the essential ingredients needed to get them through life, and love is the most important, the tonic that cures all and covers all. Love, after all, is where parenting begins and ends, right? Love is the glue. As the old standard song says, the greatest thing you'll ever learn is to love and be loved in return. It's what matters most, and what you want to remember, and what you want your kids to remember at the end of the day, at the end of their lives. But in everyday life, both parents and kids can get stuck on the things that don't really matter, like how much you brushed your teeth or how fast you hurried. You can get so caught up on these things that you forget to reinforce, and they forget to remember how much you love them. One of the most poetic passages of the Bible puts this truth beautifully. If I speak of the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. 1 Corinthians 13, 1-3. That is because love is not only the glue that holds things together. Love is the key that can move mountains, or at least your 7-year-old into, well, everything from doing his chores to achieving something like no one before him. Love can drive you to do the astounding, beyond brains and brawn, savvy and style, things that last and are remembered and affecting. For example, a desire for more love, demonstrated by brotherhood and fellowship, is what drove the completely deaf Ludwig van Beethoven to work for 12 years on what's considered the best-known and greatest musical work in the Western Hemisphere, the Ode to Joy, or Symphony No. 9. Enduring love for his wife is what compelled the Indian Emperor Shah Jahan to build one of the wonders of the world, the Taj Mahal, or crown jewel of palaces. It was for love that King Edward VIII gave up the throne, abdicating as King of the United Kingdom in 1931 in order to marry divorcee Wallis Simpson. Love is what drove Eric Liddell to run a race longer than he had trained for, defying the odds to win the 1924 Olympic gold medal for the United Kingdom in the 400-meter race. Love does, indeed, change everything. How love is constant. No one reminds me more of just how transforming love can be than Benny. When we first met, Benny was 4 years old and crawling along the floor beneath a classroom table. He was in constant motion with minuscule attention span, one of the most extreme cases of attention deficit disorder, ADD, I've ever encountered, compounded by poor motor skills and coordination too. Benny couldn't get through even a short lesson without disrupting not only his education, but that of the entire class. Yet his teacher couldn't ignore teaching all the other students just for Benny's constant particular needs. So Benny and I became well acquainted. We began meeting on a regular basis. Quickly I could see that his high energy could drive even the most patient teacher or mom to wit's end. But Benny's mom knew how to keep her wits about her. I discovered how the day I met her in the hallway. She was on her way to volunteer in Benny's classroom, and he was walking by my side to my office. The moment he saw her, Benny broke from my side to run into her arms, which were open wide. She grabbed him and raised him into a big bear hug. Every time I saw them together, it was the same. Exuberant hugs, lots of love. You couldn't help but notice how she began and ended every interaction with him in loving ways. She always demonstrated her love with not only the hugs, but pats on the arm, rub of the shoulder, a kiss on the top of the head. And she told him outright, "Love you, Benny." What a blessing the way she loves him, I thought. It wasn't just a hug. Love is so much more than hugs. It was that even in her frustrated moments and times she needed to discipline Benny and teach him things, she began and ended by showing and stating her love for him. How love is unconditional. Benny's mom loved him unconditionally, or as Dr. Ross Campbell says, no matter what. no matter what the child looks like, no matter what we expect him to be, and, most difficult, no matter how he acts. Unconditional love means we love the child even though at times we may detest the behavior. This kind of love is the most important thing that you can give your child. Dr. Barry Brazelton, a pediatrician and author, explains that's because this kind of love is essential in building a sense of trust and belief in oneself. When you love unconditionally, your children see that they are treasured and cherished. They develop an internal sense of their own preciousness, or, as the Bible puts it, how they are fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139:14. For a purpose and on purpose. Sensibilities that are the foundation for self-worth. For Benny, time confirmed just how much of a blessing this kind of love can be. His issues haven't gone away, and probably won't anytime soon, maybe never. He's still challenged by extreme hyperactivity, and awkwardly so because of those underdeveloped motor skills. When we first met, he couldn't hold a pencil or join other kindergartners in a relay race because he simply didn't have much strength or coordination. He still struggles with these things, keeping focused enough to use that pencil and looking like a wobbling newborn giraffe on the verge of toppling to the ground when he runs. For Benny, so many simple things that other children tackle with ease instead are challenges that set him apart. He's smart and needs help in lots of extra areas, so if he doesn't get it, he checks out and acts out in ways not always good for him or others. Through all the challenges, though, his mother is there patiently teaching, disciplining, and, most importantly, simply loving him. She can get as exasperated as anyone with his behavior, which has altered even how their family does things. For instance, rarely does she take him to a restaurant where they are seated and served. Instead, like so many families with a member who wrestles with ADD, they go to cafeterias where Benny can fix his short attention span on choices for supper and can practice his motor skills serving his own plate and carrying his tray, things that keep him busy and help him behave. A step toward loving better. Find lovable moments. How do you know the moment your children need to hear, "I love you" most? Is it just when you tuck them into bed at night? When they're hurt or sad? What about when they hit a home run, forget their lines in the school play, start a new program or sport or hobby, apply for a scholarship, see a friend move away or make a new friend, lose a pet, or bring home a stray? Talk about something beautiful to them or funny. Take something that doesn't belong to them, help someone, disappoint you, or break your heart. Every terse and tender moment is when your kids need to hear the words and experience the behavior that says, "I love you." When you're intentional about speaking your love, you'll find that both you and your kids become more lovable because you're more able to love despite circumstance or condition. To say "I love you" more, think even when and especially when. This activates and enables expression. Even when you don't unload the dishwasher like I asked, "I love you." And you still have to unload the dishwasher. And, especially when you were able, though it was hard, to forgive that classmate who was mean, "I love you." It's unconditional love that finds alternatives like this, that says, "I'm going to love you in spite of and regardless and even when, in spite of this, regardless of that, when you do or are this way." That kind of love, because it is constant, reassures your children and creates a safe environment for them to try new things, to ask for help when needed, and to grow. Anything less than that kind of love is conditional and conveys the message, "I love you when you get straight A's, and I love you if you do what I say." Conditional love changes with the circumstances, as uncertain and unsafe as a faulty electrical circuit that flickers off and on again, always on the verge of erupting into sparks, igniting a fire, going up in flames, and leaving your relationships in ashes. Thank goodness Benny's mom showed him a constant love not based on anything he did or didn't do. That kind of loving has made all the difference for him. Though, as a second grader now, Benny doesn't crawl under classroom tables, he can still make you at moments want to do so. He will always be a boy in gangly motion, with a short attention span. But he's learning and succeeding, and it is the safety of a constant, loving environment that is paving the way. How you can love imperfectly. Loving in that transforming way isn't easy, though. How do you love someone when she or he is getting on your last nerve? How can you love the child, much as you may be reluctant or loath to admit, disappoint you? Part of what helps Benny's mom is learning to let go of dreams of the perfect child. You know those dreams. All parents have them, whether our children have come to us naturally, by adoption, or some other way. You imagine tiny arms wrapped around your neck, sweet thank yous, and heartwarming pictures in crayon tacked to the refrigerator, gratefulness at the dinner table or when tucked into bed. You envision your child doing great things, conquering the world, or at least some corner of it, at least the homework. Then reality steps in and pulls up the shade, letting the light of day filter into dreamland. Angry at being disciplined, your child yells, "I hate you!" Or there is your child bullying the neighbor boy, mean and saying ugly things. You never imagined seeing your daughter give a hard elbow in the chest to the neighbor boy for no reason. You never thought your son could fail so miserably at math, or perform so embarrassingly at the trumpet or on the soccer field. You were shocked to hear your daughter tell her classmate, "You are such a loser," or gloat, "I knew I'd win because I'm better." Where did that child come from? That can't be my child, you think. Getting such a hard look at how your child can be versus how you dream they would be is like planning on a wonderful trip to the villas of lush, sunny Italy, then ending up on the isolated tundra of Siberia. The reality is your child, like every other, is not perfect, just as that Italian villa is filled with not only flowers and sunshine, but lizards and snakes too. Perfection is an illusion. Reality can be unsightly, wounding, and devastating. Reality can also be beautiful because even with all your imperfections, you can love your child completely. You can let go of how you wish your child could be and may become, and accept your child as he or she is right now. Your child may have your looks, name, mannerisms, build, and any other number of similarities, but that doesn't mean your child will share your ambitions, personality, or even your values. Your dreams for your child may not be theirs at all. The ancient proverb acknowledges this. Even small children are known by their actions. Proverbs 20:11. So this is a head-on, intentional choice to make, a mindset to deliberately nurture again and again, and the essential first step to loving unconditionally. Celebrate the mix of strengths and weaknesses in your child. This doesn't mean praising or excusing bad behavior or tendencies. It means loving your child, even the flaws, while still wanting the best for them. You can do this like Benny's mom, who can hear all about her son's constant motion, and before tackling what to do about it says, "Yep, this is so Benny." See how that works? There's not a declaration of how awful he can be or praising of it, just an acceptance. That is him. Another mom I know goes one step further. When she's told her daughter tends to leave her sweater or books and things wherever she wills, drop to the middle of the floor or right in front of the door, Michelle's mother smiles wanly and says, "That's what we call a Michelleism." This is neither praise nor a defense for behavior that needs correcting, rather a comment that acknowledges, yes, this is my daughter, this is who she is, and I know it, and I accept her. Honor your child's identity. Affirm and call out the very best of and in your child, what is, reinforcing all that makes your son or daughter special. One mom I know does this for her definitely right-brained daughter by remarking on the doodles on her homework, or her eccentric outfit of a striped shirt with flowery pants, or her inventive combination of ingredients to make pizza, cheese and veggies with no tomato sauce. The mom proclaims simply, "My little artist." These parents are calling out something deep in their children's identity and loving it, tending it. And the ironic thing is that loving your children just as they are, flaws and all, helps them transcend those weaknesses or failures, becoming and achieving more. Because love changes the brain. Even science confirms that love gives your children can-do power. An important study published in 2012 from the University of Washington at St. Louis, Missouri, shows that the child who feels loved and is well nurtured early in life grows more brain capacity. Love actually brings about an anatomical change. The hippocampus, the region of the brain important to learning, short and long-term memory, spatial navigation, and stress responses, grows 10% larger with love and nurture. That means children loved well, especially in those early formative years, have greater capacity to problem solve, reason, remember, and handle stress. In the study, 92 children at age 3 to 10 years were followed for nearly a decade. Scientists observed live and on-video outer behavior, how children were loved and nurtured, and how they reacted to the variety of parenting exhibited, some unconditionally nurturing and others not so. Along the way, researchers also tracked, by brain imaging, what was happening inside each child. Indisputably, the children receiving the most healthy, unconditional love and nurture showed definite growth of the hippocampus region of the brain, and as the brain physically grew, these children displayed more calm and confidence, joy, and the ability to think their way through problems. They achieved greater and higher results in all manner of things that children not nurtured well or shown unconditional love. Whether parents considered themselves loving and nurturing wasn't based on their own self-assessment. It was more than a hug. Instead, love was measured by positive behaviors, spoken words, expressions, body language, and responses. Love was demonstrated by speaking with positive reinforcement, smiles and hugs, and other things beyond personality and natural affinity of the parents. In other words, it wasn't just parents naturally inclined to be perky, optimistic, or quick to praise who were considered loving. It was parents of all different kinds of personality types using certain skills, practices, and actions that were loving. And all this dispensed unconditionally, not just when a child behaved or did well, but regardless. That is encouraging because for years, a variety of other studies have suggested that love and nurture can influence a child's performance. For instance, one University of Minnesota study, begun in the 1970s and following 267 children of first-time low-income mothers, suggests that early love and nurture from a parent improved a child's intelligence, the actual IQ. The Washington University in St. Louis study provides the first solid evidence that a parent's love and nurture throughout development changes the actual brain anatomy in children, enabling more capability. All of these studies suggest that the key is in how parents show love and nurture from even the early years of a child's life, and that this healthy parenting can be learned. Parenting education is the key. This thrills me because the art, science, faith, and psychology on parenting agree. There are identifiable skills and actions for showing love that every parent can learn to exercise. And all these things undergird what God has been telling us all along, that love makes us able because love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. 1 Corinthians 13, 7-8, NKJV. So what's a mom or dad to do? One of the first identifiable love practices that helps children thrive seems so obvious: spending time together. I'm talking undivided attention time. No television shows or computer games, text messaging, or distractions with Facebook in the background. Just one-on-one time together. This may sound simple enough, but isn't focusing on one another increasingly a struggle in these times of multitasking, with calls for our attention from every direction, any place, any time? Even without the technology, when your children are young, simply delighting in them can be a challenge. When I was a young mother, in my 20s, I was divorced and raising 2 energetic boys on my own. I sometimes wondered how to possibly give them each the attention they needed, and still have enough reserve left over for all the other demands in my life. I could start the day with the best intentions and quickly find myself chasing after all the things that needed to be done instead of simply delighting in my boys. There were breakfasts and lunches to make, and piles of laundry waiting by the washer, that was waiting for a call to the repairman. There was getting us all ready and where we needed to be for the day. And then the day at work with all its problems to solve. By the time we were all home again, we were tired, but there still was homework to do and lesson plans to finish, supper to prepare, more laundry and dishes. Pile on top of that the grocery shopping, bill paying, activities and church, mail and house cleaning, and whew! It was all I could do to get us all to bed at a somewhat decent time in order to start all over again the next morning. That's when I heard something that changed my life. Practice the 30 minutes a day rule. I was taking graduate courses during this time, and one of my professors was talking about what causes emotional disturbances in young children. He said if more parents would spend at least 30 minutes a day with their children, so many issues could be alleviated. 30 minutes a day? I wondered. Don't we already spend hours more than that together every day? No, my professor showed. Today, both the two-income families and single parents alike struggle. Everyone's busy, and even when they are together, the rhymes of family life are so complex and fragile. One thing goes wrong, and an entire morning routine can be interrupted. The things you mean to do get lost or neglected or dropped entirely. By the end of the day, you're tired and your kids are too. And still there's the laundry, the dishes, the meals, and the preparation for another day waiting. No wonder moms and dads who work outside the home spend on average less than 10 minutes a day on learning activities with each of their children. Beyond that, my professor said he was talking about spending at least 30 minutes a day of undivided attention with your kids, and that's what made a difference. One-on-one time of simply delighting in another, listening to one another, connecting. You would be surprised, he added, how many parents and children don't give one another even 15 minutes a day of undivided attention. I thought about all the times I'd been in the same room with my boys, folding laundry or reading and going over school papers while they played or did homework. It was good just to be near one another, but that didn't compare to the times we played a game together or worked together to fold the laundry and cook dinner, while as things about their day spilled into the conversation. I loved those moments, and as my professor spoke, I knew immediately the power of simply delighting in one another and being there to listen. I knew that the thoughts and feelings shared in such times were sometimes secrets and always treasures, precious and rare, often not unearthed again. That very day I determined to practice the 30 minutes a day rule with each of my boys. I knew this was something I could do. While one of my sons got ready for bed, brushing his teeth and laying things out for the next morning, I could read a bedtime story to my other son, and we could chat or play or make something together. Then as that son got ready for bed, I'd flip my focus to my other son for one-on-one time. We did the same thing in the morning, and alternated through the week who got one-on-one time first. This spilled into other times during our day, and other events too. There would be a meal or a special reason to celebrate with each son. Practicing the 30 minutes a day rule became intentional, and turned into so much more. By intentionally making 30 minutes a day for simply delighting in one another, we learned how to really pay attention to each other in snatches too. The moment one son achieved an A+ in a difficult subject, we celebrated by making a special dinner together. The time my other son completed a task he loathed without having to be nagged into it, we went for ice cream and laughed ourselves silly. Looking for ways to give one another undivided attention became a lifestyle, and it strengthened our relationship just like layer upon layer of glue holds things together, because nothing makes the ones you love feel more cherished than your attention, your constant practice of being there. In being there, I discovered another wonderful practice in how to show the kind of love that's transforming. This practice is about seizing extraordinary moments that might otherwise pass you by as ordinary. It's about seeing the cracks in your child's soul, where values, discoveries, and new ideas can be planted and begin to seep in and take root. It's about moments like the epiphany I had one Christmas. Practice the teachable moment. As my family gathered for our December celebration, I had a candy dish filled with C's chocolates on an end table. I love C's candy, and it's a special treat, not an everyday thing in my house. No wonder, then, that my granddaughter, then 3 years old, locked eyes on the chocolates when she came to visit and couldn't stop staring them down. After a few times of telling her there was to be no candy before our supper, and even then just one piece, I thought, prudence! I removed the temptations to the third shelf of the kitchen cabinet. The next morning, upon entering the kitchen, I saw Haley standing on the high stool, chocolates smeared all over her mouth and dress. "Haley," I said, eyebrows raised, "what are you doing?" Her chocolatey lips quivered. "Nothing, Grandma. Just looking." She tearfully denied all wrongdoing, even with the evidence of it all over her. "Haley," I said in a you-know-better tone. She bent her head. She did indeed know better, and so did I. From all those years raising her dad and his brother, I knew. Here was a teachable moment. Here was where I could love Haley enough to set the course right here, right now, for something life-changing. The teachable moment, after all, is all about that. Finding what can open up a discovery, change the course of how one behaves, bring wisdom and insight and personal growth. But it's not something you can construct. It is the moment that comes completely unexpected. You can't plan it. Your children won't set it up like a stage on which you can act out a well-rehearsed play. The teachable moment slips in through the cracks and steps up behind you. It surprises you and your child. It's completely random and often tied to something that demands an emotional and moral response. It can be a moment your child has done something wrong or disappointed you or themselves, when you both witness something startling and disconcerting, or something that gives you pause. It's that second that something stops you in your tracks or raises a question. When it's because of some wrongdoing or witness of wrongdoing, the temptation is to swoop in with a line like my tone to Haley. "You know better than that." But they don't. Not really. They don't fully understand the why, or the consequences and effects, the costs and tolls. So here's your opportunity to help them grasp the weight of a matter in an unforgettable way. You have the chance to gently take a circumstance by the shoulders and present it to your child. Examine it together for what it is, and what it can be by our choices. You have an open door to punish, admonish, or pontificate for a moment, and there is a place for correction to stop something that can hurt your child or someone else. Or you can choose to impart a lesson for a lifetime, because the teachable moment is just that powerful. It might be that moment when you and your daughter see a boy being bullied in the park. You can intervene and then talk with your daughter about the horrors and harm of bullying, how any person can stand up to a bully, why they should, and how in doing so can give others the courage to follow, and how bullies usually strike out of their own deep wounds because they need help too. With Haley, it was this moment of being caught in the act of doing something wrong, knowing enough to try and deny it, yet the evidence was all over her clothes, across her face, on her hands. I wanted her soul to be stained as well, with understanding, not just knowledge, of why certain rules are good for us. I wanted her to see how easily she could have fallen from that stool or gotten a tummy ache or even sugar shock from all those rich chocolates. I wanted her to have something sweeter than candy, the wisdom for a lifetime that breaking the rules can not only hurt us, but others. I wanted her to taste the disappointment of the rest of the family who would miss out on our special treat, to know that everything we have and do always costs someone something. While I could reprimand Haley in order to teach these things, there were other ways I could inspire a deeper understanding and create change. These are the things any of us can do when the teachable moment presents itself. Use the emotions running. Tap into what your children are thinking or feeling and ask about his hopes or fears in a situation. What do they wish? What do they regret? What do they dream for and want more than anything? This gives you a window into their souls and opens the way for you to bear and share your own soul. Emotions can help you connect with your child. Guide your children into discovery with questions. This means getting your children to think deeply and exploring. It means asking questions, but not just any that lead only to knowledge. You want questions that lead to understanding, the ones that don't seek one acceptable answer, a yes or no, or parroting of what your child has already heard from you. Don't do that. And thinks you want him or her to repeat. Rather, the best questions help your children explore a situation and their own part in it, the context and values attached. For instance, I could have asked Haley, "You know what you're doing is wrong, don't you?" Or I could ask, "Why do you think we needed to wait for that special candy and to share it?" The first question demands a yes or no answer. The second causes her to consider her own conscience and mine and others. Why and how and what do you think questions will always get you closer to understanding than questions that seek only a yes or no. Listen with all your heart. This may be the most important thing you can do, since the teachable moment is as much for you as your child. In listening, you will discover your children's insight and beliefs, and probably something from them about life, and they will receive wisdom from you about values and conscience. So there is some give and take, and it may not be clear who is doing what as they open up and you lean in. But as they spill their thoughts, look them in the eye. Don't interrupt. Perhaps repeat things they say as a question to make sure you're hearing what they really mean and to encourage them to explain more. Watch their body language as much as listen to their words. Are they keeping you at a distance with arms closed? Are they at a loss with hands thrown up in the air? Are they frustrated and angry with tears or fists? Are they looking for escape with darting eyes or an actual moving away from you? When you actively listen, you do some of your most meaningful work as a parent. You show your children that you love them enough to know and understand them. In turn, you also teach them by modeling how to be a good listener. Deferred judgment. There are times that clearly correction is needed. Your willingness to save correction for later allows you time to hear out your children, to truly know and understand why they did what they did, and more thoughtfully consider what correction measures will make the greatest impact. There are times, like the instance with Haley, when you know why your children did what they did. They wanted that treat. But your willingness to allow your children to speak without an immediate stamp of approval or disapproval teaches them how to think for themselves, trust you, and bring their troubles, questions, and struggles to you for help in sorting out. This can so surprise your children. This show of such determination to love them through their good choices and bad, that you give them pause, startle them into thinking deeper, turning them from their own wants into considering others. Isn't this kind of transformative turn the goal? Where love makes the difference. Of course, you can go wrong in how you love your kids or how they love you back in a dozen little ways. What's worse, you can see the breakdowns and not even realize that it's love that's missing. That love is the antidote you need. I'm talking about when your 6-year-old starts fibbing all the time, or when your son and daughter go to war day after day in acts of sibling rivalry, when your 4th grader picks apart everything and everyone, when there are angry outbursts and episodes of conflict. The root of every single one of these problems is love, or really the lack of it. Children lie out of fear. They don't want to be punished, or to hide something. There is no trust. Sibling rivalry stems from jealousies. There is envy and hurt. Conflict and anger come from wanting but not getting your way, disagreement, and simply not understanding or willing to understand. God says there are none of these things in love. No envy or meanness, no arrogance or selfishness, no anger or ill will. Rather, love is patient and kind, doesn't envy or boast, isn't arrogant or self-seeking or easily angered, keeps no record of wrong, delights in truth. 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8. Love gives your child the roots to grow and the wings to fly, and something to return to when there are troubles or questions. Even John Lennon got this when he sang, "Love is the answer, and you know that for sure." Take a closer look at where love goes wrong, where there's an absence of it, and how to use love to make things right. With critical spirits, love can turn hurting words to healing. Stephen, a 7-year-old, came to school without one good thing to say about anyone or anything. He called other kids stupid. He reacted to every new lesson or assignment in class with, "Not this," or "This again?" and "Can't we do something we really need instead of this crap?" He actually used even more coarse language than I will repeat, and he wouldn't be quiet. Right away, we needed to talk, though honestly, I wished I could talk and Stephen would stop. How does someone just 7 years old get so negative? I wondered. Then I met his mother. She came to a meeting I'd requested, complaining about everything. I couldn't find a stupid parking place. It took me forever just to get into this building. The classroom wasn't easy to find either. She said a few more coarse things, too. Wow. There was a lot of issues Stephen and his mom needed to deal with, because, as I've said before, one problem usually does not march alone. But the immediate issue to tackle had to do with words. Even when you can't control your circumstances, you can control your words, and your words can either build up or tear down. This mom's words were wrecking balls. They were so critical, negative, and demeaning that no wonder Stephen spoke the same language. Good words and thoughts were foreign to him. He and his mom needed a lot more love in their lives, and especially in their language. They needed to speak encouragement rather than discouragement, blessing instead of curse, and to call out the positive more than reinforce the negative. This was so important because they were on a slippery slope, just a word away from the kind of discouragement and despair that can stop or trip and debilitate. They spewed those things onto others too. Words have the power. God says a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:1. And what you say can mean life and death. Proverbs 18:21. Life and death. The proverb goes on to say that the one who speaks good words will be rewarded. And science and psychology echo the Bible. One study has found that just hearing sentences about the elderly caused participants to walk more slowly. In another, individuals who read words of loving kindness showed increases in self-compassion, improved mood, and reduced anxiety. Words spoken truly and with genuine feeling do indeed affect your thinking and behavior, your reactions and beliefs. What Stephen and his mom needed to do then is the same thing you can do when you catch yourself or your child cursing, saying things that are negative, critical, false, mean, and non-productive. It's not a magic answer or list of steps to take. It's a decision. You stop using words that tear down. Stupid, fool, crazy, and worse. You do both the simple and hard thing of catching yourself or your child talking negatively and just say, "Stop." Then you practice blessing rather than cursing. You speak words that bring life. You say something constructive rather than destructive, positive instead of negative. If you can't do that, say nothing until you can. This is an intention, meaning you determine to do it. You actively look for opportunity and you choose to build up. Make it a habit in your house to practice blessing in one of these ways. Put praise on paper. Susan said she and her husband decided before their children started school that they would take turns writing to each of them an encouraging, loving note every morning and tuck it into their lunch sacks. These aren't letters, she said. Most of the time, they're just scribbles on a Post-it. You are magnificent. You can do this today. I love you. But every note reminds the kids that we believe in them and that they each are special. We wanted the words to be things they would internalize, and I think they have. I've seen them saving the notes. My son stashes them in his top dresser drawer, between the socks and the t-shirts. My daughter keeps hers in a pretty box where she puts her beads and little trinkets. They have the notes as reminders, especially for the times they will need them, that they are valuable and loved. Bless your children around the table, as in the examples from the Bible. This cue is straight from Jewish culture, as families from Abraham to King David's to Jesus' family would have practiced. Every Friday night, at their special Shabbat dinner, Jewish fathers placed a hand on each of their children's heads and praised something specific about what each child uniquely brings to this world. God, thank you for Kathy and the way you made her to run fast. Or, Lord, thank you for Philip's kind heart. Do this in your own way by praising one thing beautiful about your children in your prayers before meals. Speak a blessing as a prayer straight from the Bible. Numbers 6:24 through 26. May God bless and protect you. May God's face shine toward you and show you favor and grant you peace. Or, upon waking from sleep or tucking your child at bedtime, pray a personalized version of God's promise in Jeremiah 29:11. For God knows the plans He has for you, my daughter, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Mark the milestones with blessing. In their book, Lord Bless My Child, William and Nancy Carmichael identify in the Bible 6 critical times for blessing to be received from God through parents for their children. Upon conception, while in the womb, at birth, in infancy, for puberty as a rite of passage into adulthood, upon marriage, and in old age. Birthdays, graduations, the start of a new school year or sport and hobby are each opportunities to celebrate with your child, and can be as formal as you like or not. The key is to make it intentional and dedicated. Speak it on the thresholds. A single mom, Deb, prays God's promises and blessings over her daughter whenever they cross the threshold of the front door to their house. Whenever we entered and left our home, we prayed for God to prosper and protect us. The idea came from Psalm 121:8, that says, "The Lord will watch over you coming and going." I love that, so that became our prayer. Now saying this prayer is just what we always do, like buckling up when you get into the car. I want my daughter to know she is blessed through the day, every day. I wanted her to hear me say the blessing, and to be able to repeat it to herself and others. Just last week, we brought home a couple of Shara's friends from soccer practice, and as we walked in the front door, Shara and I looked at each other, laughed, and she said to her friends, "Lord, watch over the coming of the soccer team." And I added, "Because our living room field is only so big." Deb and Shara's practice reminds me of something John Trent and Gary Smalley pointed out in their book, The Blessing. In the Bible, Abraham spoke blessing to his son Isaac, who spoke a blessing to his son Jacob, who spoke a blessing to each of his 12 sons and 2 of his grandchildren. When God blessed us with the gift of his Son, he said his word became flesh and dwelt among us. John 1:14. God has always been a God of words, and his words are ones of promise, blessing, goodness, and mercy for, as the shepherd king of the Bible says in Psalm 23, all the days of our lives.